Last night I was watching a little bit of football, watching the Seahawks and the 49ers with my 7-year-old son and my daughter and my husband. And the entire time, my son and my husband are using this football and they're throwing passes back and forth. And my son is rooting for the Seahawks like a crazy person. He's so excited. It's an intense game. It's back and forth. There are injuries. There's a lot of talking. You don't know who's going to win the game. Right? You don't have any idea. There's a touchdown, there's incredible passes, there are amazing plays, and there's one amazing play that Aaron Andrews asks Richard Sherman about at the end of the game. Richard Sherman, take me through that play. And instead of Richard Sherman being able to handle that question with any type of class, he sort of loses his mind a little bit, at least in my estimation. And based on the reaction on Twitter and on social media, I think a lot of people had this same, wow, you could have been better about that, Richard Sherman. Now, I will say this. I know that Richard Sherman went to Stanford. I now have read that he graduated second in his class. So one would assume that Richard Sherman is a pretty smart guy, right? Well paid in terms of being on a professional football team. He is an incredible athlete, clearly. He is coming off a game that is sending his team to the Super Bowl, and it is very clear that there was a lot of talking between he and some other players. And it's also clear that it wasn't just him, that there was at least some other interaction. I get that it was a heated moment. I get that it was intense. But I believe that he needs to be better than that. If he is as smart as people keep saying, then he needs to be able to handle that with a little bit of class. Because I do not think that the way he handled that was good for his team, was good for the NFL, was good for him as a role model, was good for Stanford, was good for the fact that his former coach is right across the field from him. I had to sit and explain that to my son, who's sitting next to me and thinking, I don't understand. Wasn't he just mean? Yes, it was not appropriate. It was not okay. Now, did the way a lot of people on social media handle it, was that okay? No. Being racist about it, never okay. Not acceptable under any stretch of the imagination. Again, I get that it was heated. I get that he's coming off this crazy moment. But I do think that it is his responsibility to handle that with some level of dignity. I just think that it is. As a consumer, as a fan, as someone who loves football, sure, we love to watch those moments that we watch over and over and over again, those intense, crazy moments. But I want to see intensity and energy and, sure, quotable moments, but I want him to have class. I want him, yes, he's media trained. I'm seeing him look right in the camera. I knew he knew what he was doing, but at the same time, he was so classy just a couple of minutes later when he was accepting the trophy when he was on stage. So he's got it in him. He needed to be better than that. He did. He needed to be better than that because he lost his role model status. He had this opportunity to be this incredible athlete who had just made the play of the game that sent his team to the Super Bowl. And instead, we're talking about him as the guy who had absolutely no humility whatsoever. And instead of focusing on the fact that he made this incredible play that was sending his team to the Super Bowl, he just wanted to stick it to somebody else and talk about how he was the guy. He was the guy, and if anybody thinks that they're better than him, they're wrong. Okay, I'm not into cliches. I wasn't waiting for him to say it was all a team effort. It was just all about, couldn't have done it without anybody else on my team. I don't need that. But can there be a little bit of class? I don't know. I'd love to know what you think. I've seen a little bit of two sides of the story. I've seen some people saying, just heat of the moment, we've got to let it go. And I've seen some people saying that it was completely classless. The one thing I'm not interested in at all is any type of unacceptable racial conversation, because that isn't part of it at all. That's not part of the conversation, not part of the dialogue, not interested, because that has no place here. Danielle Smith, at Danielle Smith TV on Twitter, if you'd like to join the conversation. And of course, we're having this conversation on Google Plus as well. Love to hear what you have to say.